When the Earth began to upgrade and everyone went to other worlds to seek refuge, I was the only one left forgotten. Even the gods couldn't detect my existence. All because I had a special constitution. Just now I discovered that the school, the streets, and my home were all empty. It felt like everyone had vanished into thin air, and time remained frozen. While I was confused, an angel appeared behind me and told me about everything that had happened here. Since Earth's experience points were full, it needed to evolve to the next stage. Time would stop for 10 years, and divine power would fill the entire world. Humans could peer into the secrets of the universe and themselves through status windows, just like high-level beings such as angels. But Earth would also upgrade to the Great Catastrophe era, and to prevent humanity's extinction, the god sent humans to another world to learn divine power, giving them time to adapt and train. However, because I had special skills, the god couldn't detect my existence, thus leaving me behind. To compensate me, God's messenger Rita would accompany me for 10 years. But Earth was currently in a phase without divine power, so I couldn't learn divine power at all. All I could do was desperately train my body. During this time, Rita helped me solve the food problem. I didn't even need to worry about washing dishes. 5 years quickly passed. I began learning marksmanship. Rita would also give me guidance from the side. In a flash, I had already studied martial arts for 4 years. Today, Rita suddenly suggested I spar with her. I charged at her with 9 years of accumulated strength. She just casually waved her hand, and I was defeated. Rita said she would become my sparring partner. Although I was very reluctant, I still persisted for a whole year under her beating. I finally endured until today, 10 years later, and I dressed up to welcome a new beginning. After saying a friendly goodbye to Rita, I stood nervously at the spot where people had disappeared. Although I was reluctant to part with Rita, I was finally able to return to my previous life. But after several hours, no one had returned. Rita appeared behind me with an embarrassed expression, saying something might have gone wrong. I raged furiously. I had already waited 10 years. Did I have to wait another 10 years? Or even 100 years? However, 10 years, 20 years, even 50 years passed, yet people still hadn't returned. Although my physique and marksmanship had reached perfection, I couldn't even remember what my parents looked like. 50 years of persistence only made me stronger. But how much longer could I hold on? Would people ever return? I had grown tired of repeatedly practicing martial arts. Rita didn't want me to give up, because the Great Catastrophe might arrive at any time. I told her that I planned to study seriously from now on. Doing the same thing all the time would only make it harder to persist. After that, I began reading books all day, from novels to business books, then to history, geography, chemistry, and other subjects. When I finished all the books in the library, I went on to learn other countries' languages. Subsequently, Rita and I began traveling around the world to pass this tedious life. While touring various countries, I also read all the books in the world. Although I didn't know how much time had passed, I had no time to feel tired. There were still many things to prepare before the Great Catastrophe arrived. Rita hadn't expected that even after hundreds of years had passed. I still firmly believed that humanity would return. She prayed, "Please send all humans back before Lu Wei reaches his limit." She didn't want to see me give up on life. After finishing all the books, I began learning butchery techniques. While I was absorbed in processing wild boar, Rita told me that 274 years had now passed. This was a long time even for an angel. She hadn't expected me to keep preparing for the future. While I acted as if I hadn't heard, focusing on my work as a butcher, by the 300th year, I had completely mastered butchery techniques. Then I learned forging. But after 5 years, I had only made one sword. Rita laughed and said this sword probably couldn't even cut through a radish. Although she mocked me verbally, she wanted to keep the sword as a memento. Over the next 50 years, I made various kinds of weapons, but none of them satisfied me. Until a century had passed, I finally created a perfect spear. After mastering butchery and forging, I began studying martial arts again. By this time, I no longer cared what year or month it was. Fortunately, Rita had been accompanying me all along, but with humanity's delayed return, Rita began to worry. What would happen if I reached my most desperate moment? If only she could bring some new experiences. After thinking for a long time, Rita suddenly realized the only thing I hadn't experienced seemed to be romantic love between men and women. As soon as this thought appeared, Rita's face instantly turned red with embarrassment. She felt she must be crazy. How could an angel have such ridiculous thoughts? But Rita thought that if I was willing, she wouldn't mind. Just then, I noticed something unusual and quickly called out to Rita. Seeing her confusion, I pointed to the sword swaying at Rita's waist. This was the one she had taken as a memento back then, but unexpectedly, this sword instantly flew out on its own. In her urgency, Rita hurried to chase after it. But just then, my clothes changed back to what I wore on the day time stopped, and everything was slowly returning to its original state. Rita prayed to God not to take away this sword, but when she looked down, she realized the Great Catastrophe era had already arrived. I below also began to fly upward. Rita had wanted to say goodbye to me properly, but she couldn't resist God's power either. Over this 1,000 years, we had developed deep feelings for each other. Rita's last words as she was taken away were complaining that we never even got to kiss, while I could only silently watch her getting farther and farther away. Rita's departure left me very downhearted, recalling how she once said she was an angel, a high-level being. Did this mean that if I also became a high-level being, I could see Rita again? The world's reset ended, and people gradually began to return. When I opened my eyes again, I was surrounded by crowds of people. A status window also appeared before me. Everyone was discussing their experiences over the past 10 years. This meant they had 10 years of divine power training experience, while I had fallen behind by a full 1,000 years. But now I only wanted to see my parents, because I had almost forgotten what they looked like. When When I returned home, a familiar voice suddenly called out. The moment I saw my mother, all the familiar memories flooded back. Even though 1,000 years had passed, there was still no distance between us. The dinner scene was exactly the same as before. The only difference was that my parents' conversation was all about their otherworldly experiences. When they asked about me, I was afraid they would worry, so I brushed it off. According to what they said, despite having 10 years of training, it seemed not many people could control divine power well. I chatted with my parents late into the night and reluctantly returned to my room. Then I discovered that the spear I had spent 100 years forging hadn't disappeared. I could only think this was because of Rita. This was good. I wouldn't need to look for new weapons when fighting monsters. I opened the status window and saw that this spear had an attack power of 800 points. I didn't know if this was high or low, so I began searching online for information shared by people who had returned from other worlds. I first organized information about levels. Levels 1 to 5 were ordinary human level. It was said that in other worlds, the standard for selecting soldiers was usually level 7, and those above level 10 could obtain professions like swordsman or archer. After reaching level 50, one could get a second profession change opportunity, which was also seen as a symbol of being an expert. When reaching level 100, a third profession change was possible, and after the third profession change, leveling difficulty became hellish, so almost no one online posted about seeing fourth profession change individuals. However, there were various speculations, saying only dragons or high-level monsters like Bahamut could reach the fourth profession change realm. This was all the information I could collect for now. I'd investigate more at school tomorrow. Although the world had changed dramatically, my life didn't seem to have changed much. After a moment of silence, I murmured Rita's name. I still missed her so much. The next second a voice came. Rita would be very happy to hear you say that. Then an angel appeared before me. Her name was Lisa, an angel sent by God to teach me how to use divine power, to compensate for my lost 10 years. Of course, this was also thanks to Rita's contribution. She had cried to the gods, saying I had been alone on Earth for 1,000 years and was the only one who couldn't use divine power. To ensure fairness, according to Rita's request, God sent Lisa to help me quickly master divine power. The reason Rita wasn't allowed to come personally was that God didn't want angels and humans to get too close. After observing me for a while, Lisa was somewhat surprised. I seemed different from what Rita had reported. Because I had a strong body, there didn't seem to be any need to send an angel. Now Lisa understood she had been deceived by Rita. She hadn't expected the supposedly innocent Rita to use such cunning methods, but since she had already accepted the task, Lisa said she would help me master divine power skillfully in the coming days. She was a high-level angel, and just by staying by my side, she could activate the divine power within me and increase my divine power cognition and control efficiency tenfold. During the period without divine power, even being with Rita for 1,000 years wouldn't have had this effect. Now was the Great Catastrophe era, and Lisa estimated it would take a year for me to master divine power. So for the entire next year, she would sit on my head. Seeing my concern, Lisa said she had cast magic so that lower beings couldn't see her. I went out early the next day, but because of my skill, no one could detect my existence yet. And this skill couldn't be turned off no matter what. However, the angel Lisa said my skill was good. In her view, all the skills these people around me were showing off combined couldn't compare to mine. This was a good opportunity to gather intelligence. During this time, I heard about a powerful being called the Empress. This was a female student from our school who had performed excellently in the other world. I also learned that dungeons with level restrictions would appear, so I asked Lisa about it. Through her explanation, I learned that dungeons were a type of trap, and the ones who set them was God. There were various monsters inside. God would place bait to lure monsters into the dungeons. Once the dungeons were filled with monsters, he would seal the exits and trap them inside. But humans were different from monsters. As long as they had the appropriate qualifications, they could freely enter and exit. This was how gods created relatively safe hunting spaces for humans. However, dungeons would naturally disappear after a certain time, so the monsters inside had to be dealt with before then. However, there were also some powerful monsters in the world. Some could destroy traps, and some could even create dungeons as camouflage, so Lisa warned me never to be careless. The monsters in the early stages of the Great Catastrophe were all relatively weak, so she suggested I could hunt monsters now to level up. After all, I had a monster-like body, and could easily defeat low-level monsters around level 25. Just then, Lisa seemed to sense something, and told me I could engage in real combat soon. As soon as she finished speaking, a commotion came from outside the classroom. It turned out that a large group of insects had attacked. Not only had they grown in size, but their exoskeletons and physical structures were also different. Seeing several groups of resistance fighters sacrifice themselves, all the students fled in terror, because when they were transported back, their data was reset, and they all became level 1. I broke off a wooden stick, and quickly swung it countless times. When I stopped, a simple weapon was ready. After making a few more, I prepared to set off. Although I had the invisibility skill, I would still be noticed when fighting, so I asked Lisa if there was a way to hide my identity, so she gave me a mask to use. Then I leaped from the 18th floor, and killed a giant mantis with one kick. The system prompted, killed level 13 giant mantis, gained 800 experience points, leveled up to level 3, and all attributes improved. Feeling the changes in my body, I understood this was what leveling up meant. Although there was only a tiny bit of magic power growth, I was still very happy. Just then, several giant insects appeared behind me. I slowly gripped the wooden spear in my hand. The next second, I threw it hard. A giant ant monster was instantly shattered by the powerful force. Then I took out another weapon and split the ant in half. Suddenly, several large mosquitoes appeared. I first first killed one, but another mosquito quietly appeared behind me. It forcefully pressed me into the ground. But how could my 1,000-year-old body be injured by its weak proboscis? My body had long transcended human limits. After dealing with the last mosquito, another mantis appeared above. It swung its claws at me, but I easily dodged. However, Lisa quickly warned me that many monsters had come as reinforcements, and I was completely surrounded. But I wasn't afraid. I picked up my weapon and frantically killed these monsters. My level had now reached 6, but then I suddenly heard thunder roaring. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, turning the monster to ash with one strike. Standing in front of me was a girl also wearing a mask. Lightning was still flowing slowly at her fingertips. While I was wondering if this was magic, Lisa told me not to get distracted and to quickly kill all the monsters. The girl beside me was manipulating lightning to gradually eliminate the remaining monsters. To be able to continuously perform lightning attacks like this, her divine power must be very abundant. She was probably leveling up constantly too, because each time you level up, your stamina recovers, and presumably divine power does too. Anyway, this was the last monster, and after killing it, I reached level 7. When the army arrived for support, only a pile of corpses remained at the scene, and in front of them was a man extracting things from the monster's rear ends. Lisa said that since I had learned butchery, I could obtain magic stones by processing monster corpses. She would tell me which parts of monsters generally contained magic stones. While many people were amazed by my strength, I had already extracted a magic stone. However, when I turned around, I discovered I was being watched and photographed by many people. At this moment, the girl who had manipulated lightning walked over. She wanted to ask me to help her process the monsters. This was my first encounter with the Empress. Hearing her words, I didn't refuse, but asked how much she would give me. She decisively said that if I helped her process them, she would give me 40% of the corpses. Hearing this, I happily agreed. From the people nearby, I understood that the girl was indeed the Empress. Her strength was as powerful as rumored. Soon after, the dissection was complete, and the Empress successfully obtained a magic stone and many materials. I picked up my share and prepared to leave, while everyone was absorbed in the Empress's power. Lisa told me not to worry, because after the battle ended, with invisibility taking effect, people suddenly found that I had disappeared. Everyone mistakenly thought I had left too quickly, but I was actually right behind them. Although this was the situation I most wanted to see, I was still somewhat sad. After returning home, I planned to make some defensive equipment with the materials I had obtained, but the armor might not be enough. Fortunately, the wrist and knee guards I made were about right. However, Lisa reminded me that making equipment from monster materials was complex, and it would be more reliable to find a professional craftsman later. I was extremely confident about this, because the most outstanding craftsman on Earth now should be me. Seeing this, Lisa fell silent again. Was this really the human who couldn't do anything that Rita had described? She really wanted to go back and expose Rita now. But since things had come to this point, Lisa told me if I wanted to know about divine power techniques. These referred to using magic stones or other divine power crystals to give equipment special powers. It was the same concept as Earth's forging, but more advanced. Hearing about techniques to forge stronger equipment, I excitedly grabbed Lisa and asked her to teach me. My sudden action startled Lisa. After pushing me away, she said she would teach me. Then Lisa said that before learning, I needed to prepare the necessary materials and magic stones, or divine power crystals with similar properties to magic stones. Seeing that I didn't understand what divine power crystals were, she gave an example, like dragon hearts, which contained large amounts of divine power. Once the equipment prototype was forged, magic stones were ground up and applied to the surface. This was the simplest basic divine power equipment. Then came the technique for granting special abilities. Since I couldn't manipulate divine power now, Lisa thought I couldn't make it, but I wasn't discouraged and decided to try first. Seeing this, Lisa also gave me a new method. That was to use large amounts of magic stones to replace divine power, by consuming divine power or magic stones to give weapons flame, or ice and other special powers. It could also make weapons have effects like recovering stamina while resisting attacks. What abilities to give weapons depended on the craftsman's will. So overall, granting abilities required extremely strong desire. So I began making equipment, and soon a pair of wrist and knee guards were finished. After sprinkling magic stone powder, the status window prompted, learn divine power techniques. But the creation process wasn't finished yet. There were still some magic stones left. I planned to use the divine power within the magic stones. Seeing me close my eyes and concentrate, Lisa was very surprised. She hadn't expected me to try granting equipment abilities so soon. At this moment, I thought, I wanted the equipment to have the sharpness of a mantis's scythe. Just when I was about to succeed, I was about to fail because there weren't enough magic stones. Seeing this scene, Lisa felt sorry and immediately helped by providing divine power. The next second, countless energies gathered in the wrist guard in my hand. Lisa thought it had still failed, but I smiled slightly because my divine power memory level had improved. This also meant this wrist guard had gained special abilities. I raised my hand and waved it lightly. The iron chain nearby was instantly cut, and its ability was exactly what I had just imagined. Although Lisa had helped, succeeding on the first try earned her praise. But since I had just destroyed the park's swing, I hurriedly fled. Lisa was speechless because she could have restored it with magic. The next day, I explained to my mother for a long time. I said I just wanted to go out for a walk, and finally succeeded in getting outside. Halfway there, I told Lisa I really wanted to see the Empress again, because I was very interested in the divine power she controlled. The Empress's abilities seemed to far exceed those of others who had gone to other worlds. But Lisa said this wasn't anything special. After all, she had 10 years of experience. In Lisa's view, I was the one who was truly special. Being able able to process monster shells without divine power, even she had to be amazed by this. Just as she finished speaking, Lisa suddenly stopped. Seeing her turn around, I asked what had happened. Lisa said she sensed a group of monsters approaching, led by a level 35 ice wolf. Hearing this, I was shocked, because Lisa had said before that there were no high-level monsters in the early stages of the Great Catastrophe. Helplessly, Lisa explained that she had felt something was wrong since yesterday, because on the second day of the Great Catastrophe, the monsters we killed were already over level 10. Now there was a problem with Earth. Lisa thought she might need my help next. Before I could ask more questions, she urged me to hurry up. The situation over there seemed urgent, and Lisa also explained why the monsters were so strong on the way. God had transferred humans before the Great Catastrophe arrived, but left the animals on Earth, because God thought leaving animals on Earth for 10 years wouldn't be a problem. But due to an unknown error, Earth's timeline had seriously shifted. Finally, 10 years had passed in other worlds, but on Earth it had already been 1,000 years. During this 1,000 years, I had focused on doing things and being with Rita, so I couldn't notice the change in time at all. Although time had reset, the animals that should have lived for 10 years had unexpectedly survived for 1,000 years. The result was obvious now. Earth's animals had become very strong and intelligent. When Lisa brought me to the scene, it was already covered in blood. Lisa said she had already reported the situation yesterday, but before adjustments arrived, she hoped I could take on the task of clearing out monsters and would give reasonable compensation afterward. However, looking at this pack of vicious wolves, I understood this task probably wouldn't be easy. Fortunately, the current wolf pack wasn't very strong and wouldn't make me retreat. I immediately picked up my spear and leaped up, then killed toward the wolf pack on the ground. Even the strongest ice wolf died on the spot under my strike. Because of yesterday's leveling up, my strength had also greatly improved. There were about 70 monsters on the scene, and their leader's death didn't make them give up. But the other small monsters were even less of a match for me. While I was killing the small monsters, cries for help came from behind. Some people who hadn't had time to evacuate were now surrounded by wolves. Unlike the safe hunting environment of other worlds, facing these wolves, the level reset people couldn't use magic to resist at all. At the critical moment, I arrived with my spear for rescue. With just one thrust, 2 wolves were killed. When I reached level 9 from experience, I stopped. Because I didn't have a profession, I couldn't reach level 10, but fortunately, excess experience would be stored. After I rescued them, the people on the scene recognized me. I was the masked man from S University yesterday, but the title they gave me was very unpleasant. S University's proctologist, a strong warrior famous for speed. This made me uncomfortable, while Lisa mocked me from the side. In the middle of continuing to kill wolves, something shocking happened. One of the gray wolves actually held a man hostage. Looking at its skillful manner, Lisa thought it probably wasn't the first time it had done this. However, in the face of absolute strength, such tricks still seemed pale and powerless. While speaking, my spear had already pierced through the gray wolf. Seeing that I was out of weapons, the wolf pack prepared to launch a fierce attack. But under Lisa's guidance, my fighting skills were equally strong. The wolves could only die quickly one by one under my iron fists. Soon, I had killed over 70 wolves. When preparing to butcher, the spear was very inconvenient. I'd need to make a specialized butchering knife later. There were too many corpses this time for me to handle alone, so I negotiated with the arriving army to sell them part of the materials excluding the magic stones. Thus, this hunt ended. After waiting not long, the army brought over the money for the materials. They were very generous, and Lisa also suggested I could build good relationships with the army in the future. Not long after the battle ended, the invisibility effect began to take effect. After confirming that no one could see me, I slowly walked home. I had to continue preparing when I got back. I believed the monsters would get stronger and stronger. When I arrived near home, I opened the status window under Lisa's guidance. Next, I had to choose my profession. There were many types currently available. Among them, assassin was the first I ruled out. Having invisibility was enough. Lisa also told me that when I could master divine power, invisibility could become an active skill. There were 23 professions total to choose from, and I had trouble deciding, so I asked Lisa if she had any recommendations. Lisa was somewhat surprised. She hadn't expected me to have 23 professions available just after coming into contact with this record window called Akashic. If I waited a bit longer, it might even increase to 40. After thinking for a few minutes, Lisa gave me 2 choices. One was spearman, the other was fighter. After all, spear techniques and fighting techniques were what I had always practiced. Although getting beaten up was a frequent occurrence during that period, Lisa thought I was lucky. Opportunities to learn techniques directly from an angel weren't common. She also told me not to worry. When my level got higher, I would have many opportunities to choose sub-professions. Finally, I made up my mind and chose to become a spearman. I chose this profession thinking I could have weapons. No matter what, a spearman's destructive power was definitely greater than a fighter's. However, when I pressed confirm, the window changed differently. So I quickly told Lisa that there was an additional profession called blood spearman. This shocked Lisa immediately, because those with descriptive prefixes were unique professions. They were custom-made professions for each chosen person, possessing power far beyond original professions. Lisa told me I must choose blood spearman. Although unique professions required higher experience for leveling, their value was greater. As I pressed the confirm button, the accumulated experience also brought me to level 18. But I soon discovered that although I had pressed blood spearman, it had become blur spearman instead, with the effect of increasing attack power by 10% while in stealth. This also seemed to be because of my innate cosmic loner title, which caused changes during profession acquisition. Seeing it wasn't the domineering blood spearman, I immediately regretted it. But now there was no way to choose again. At this time, after confirming the profession, a power also flowed into my whole body. My body became even stronger. According to Lisa's speculation, with my current growth rate, I might not be able to obtain divine power even during the second profession change, and I didn't gain any new active skills from this profession change. Fortunately, Lisa's words reassured me greatly. She said if I couldn't gain skills in the second profession change either, the window would keep recording. By the third profession change, I would definitely gain powerful skills. After digesting what I had gained, Lisa told me to hurry out. She wanted to take me to continue eliminating monsters. Besides me, there were other agents taking on tasks, so I only needed to be responsible for my own area. The Empress had also become one of the agents eliminating monsters. This was the task heaven gave us. If achievements exceeded others, rewards would increase accordingly. We soon arrived at our destination. Ahead was a huge brown bear. Facing its terrifying power, many people could only run frantically, but I excitedly raised my spear. However, before I could attack, huge sounds and vibrations suddenly occurred around us. I thought it was the army firing rockets, but Lisa slowly pointed ahead, because the source of the vibrations was the brown bear. It was fighting with army personnel. These attacks were like scratching an itch to the brown bear. Previous news had also mentioned that the government had invited many ability users to protect the city together, but they hadn't arrived yet. Seeing that the soldiers probably couldn't hold out, I directly put on my mask. Seeing me standing still, Lisa urged me to hurry up. I was waiting for the right moment. When the invisibility skill took effect, my attacks would increase by 10%. And because of using spear techniques, I could also get a 10% attack bonus. With these two bonuses, I naturally wanted to wait until the bonuses were maxed. While taking advantage of the monster's inattention, I would give it the most deadly blow. When the brown bear noticed me, it could no longer dodge. It was instantly pierced hard in the head by me. The powerful attack made the brown bear's hide unable to defend. But I also understood that this guy couldn't be defeated with just one blow. After all, according to Lisa, the brown bear was already a second stage monster. At this time, I took a deep breath, then told the soldiers and hunters behind me to leave first, because ordinary people couldn't intervene in the upcoming battle, even though they were people who had trained in other worlds. They still couldn't cope with Earth's current situation. The brown bear slowly turned its head and understood I was its greatest enemy. Dodging the red light wave the brown bear suddenly fired, I picked up my spear and thrust fiercely. This blow I aimed at its paw. Lisa above my head looked completely enjoying herself. She found it very exciting. The twice-injured brown bear was extremely angry, but it couldn't keep up with my speed, so what I had to do was find good opportunities. When I saw the brown bear show an opening, I immediately concentrated all my strength. The next second, I thrust straight into the brown bear's head. This powerful blow pierced it to death on the spot. I also gained a large amount of experience, successfully reaching level 23, and gained a critical hit skill. Lisa was very satisfied with my strength. I had killed a level 54 brown bear with just 3 shots, and next came my favorite butchering time. But suddenly, the brown bear's body shrank by a circle. It turned out that what I had just seen was its gigantification skill, and the skill became ineffective after it died. While I was discussing gaining skills with Lisa, a small car came from behind. The people who got out seemed to be the other ability users who had arrived late. Hearing that the monster had already been killed, they arrogantly thought that second stage monsters were nothing special. I was still processing the bear's corpse when they also noticed me nearby. Faced with several people's unreasonable inquiries, I didn't want to pay attention at all. After all, I was more or less socially anxious and didn't like talking with these people. After a moment, I obtained a pile of bearskin, but unfortunately this monster didn't drop any magic stones. At this time, a soldier told me some intelligence. Apparently there was some software in the country that could determine monster appearance information controlled by the army on maps. He hoped it could help with my hunting. Seeing this, I thanked him, and then left the scene. At this time, I opened my phone to check, and was surprised to find that 3 areas nearby had all encountered monster attacks. Seeing my concern, Lisa told me not to worry about it and just take them all out. Upon hearing this, I hesitated no more and set off immediately. After some time, I had already eliminated 3 waves of monsters, but the results were quite disappointing, as I had only gained 1 level in total. It was probably due to my unique profession. If it had been a regular profession, Lisa should have been able to reach level 30 by now. Fortunately, I did collect quite a lot of materials, which I sold to the military personnel. I now had more cash than I could ever spend. The next morning, I had just woken up when I saw information appearing on the window. Notification: connection to the other world has been restored. From now on, people can use their physical bodies to travel to the other world they were previously in to complete related tasks and receive rewards. Upon seeing this message, my vision went dark. I quickly found Lisa and asked her what this meant. She said, "The monsters on Earth are too strong, so they've decided to send humans back to the other world so they can safely accumulate experience points. Everyone else could go to the other world whenever they wanted, but I alone couldn't." This made me feel extremely dejected. Lisa waved her hand and said, "You were already alone to begin with, so this won't affect your life. And regarding your situation, I'm powerless to help. After all, I'm not the one who makes the rules." Hearing this, I felt somewhat disappointed, but it seemed like something I could accept, just not being able to go to the other world. However, Lisa suddenly said, "Going to the other world isn't impossible. As long as you can become a higher being, then you'll not only be able to go to the other world, but also travel to the heavenly realm. At that point, you'll be in existence equal to the angels, and you'll be able to see Rita again." Her words gave me considerable comfort. While eating dinner with my parents, I saw a news report. It was about a global emergency martial law being declared. All outdoor activities would be temporarily suspended, attended, including school and work. Seeing this news, I understood that the country could no longer guarantee people's safety. So I suggested to my parents that they return to the other world for refuge. I could live well on my own. At this moment, my mother said, "You must be that masked person who appeared in the news. I knew it was you the first time I saw it." In the end, my parents also followed my suggestion and went to the other world. What I didn't expect was that Lisa also had to leave. She needed to go back to collect task rewards. Before leaving, I asked her to bring me back some ice cream. After Lisa left, I used money to build a new base where I processed various materials. A few days later, Lisa returned, and she actually appeared in her true form. Then she extended her hand, saying she wanted to give me the reward for this task. When I grasped Lisa's hand, I was instantly notified that the Heaven Agent task had been completed. The reward was add 1 to all attributes. Plus, I received the Eternal Flame. I was about to ask what the Eternal Flame was when I saw Lisa wiping her hand with a disgusted expression, saying, "The Eternal Flame is a flame that never extinguishes. It's not only the most precious flame in heaven, but also an essential tool for forging high-level equipment. More importantly, this was carefully selected for you by Rita." Hearing this, I said happily, "She still knows exactly what I need, as always." During Lisa's return to heaven, she had also investigated the reason why the monsters had become stronger, because the god had used their power to stop time. This caused all living beings on Earth to be affected by the god's power, making them stronger and more violent. Next, Lisa brought me a new task: to create a destruction trap. It could automatically attract monsters into it, then trap them like a dungeon before destroying all the monsters. This was also the only way to escape Earth's predicament. Of course, the more difficult the task, the richer the reward would be. The monsters would corner humanity on the 4th day, and if left unchecked, they would become even more rampant. But Lisa seemed to already know my decision, and immediately pulled out a full sack of materials. Inside were not only magic stones as big as ostrich eggs, but also 3 types of metal materials exclusive to heaven. What made me even more delighted was this set of the finest tools from heaven. Finally, there was this complex crafting blueprint. These high-level items instantly triggered my forging desire. At the same time, I asked Lisa to prepare my reward in advance. Seeing this, Lisa smiled slightly, saying this reward would definitely surprise me. Hearing this, I immediately changed into my forging attire. Now just sit back and watch my performance. Then I took out the largest magic stone and fed it to the eternal fire. After the flame completely dissolved the magic stone, I took out my hammer and struck it 82 times. Only then did I manage to create this small cube. Lisa watched my forging technique in amazement. She sighed, "If your class were changed to blacksmith, you might be able to create weapons capable of challenging the gods." But this had only given the trap its initial form. Next, I needed to carve special patterns on it according to the blueprint. Watching me work so earnestly, Lisa could now understand why Rita, despite being a high-ranking angel, would fall for a lowly human. A few hours later, I suddenly put down the engraving knife. In my hands, a cube with a lustrous surface and complex patterns began to float. At the same time, I gained the legendary creator title, with the effect of increasing production efficiency by 20%. Looking at the divine power cube in my hands, Lisa's eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't believe I had finished it so quickly. In fact, I had worked for a full 5 hours. Hearing this, Lisa finally realized she had been watching me work for so long. After taking the cube in her hands, Lisa understood I had crafted it perfectly. However, to prevent me from becoming too proud, she told me this work barely passed the requirements. Now only the final divine art step remained, which required Lisa to call her companions to help, when I was hopefully expecting Rita to come as well. The next second, other angels appeared instead. They discussed the details of performing the divine arts together, while also marveling that a mere human could create this destruction trap. After everything was ready, I held the energy stone and waited for the 3 angels. But they said, "You just need to have the firm will to complete the destruction trap. Leave the rest to us." Soon, all 3 angels placed their hands on my shoulders. The next second, divine power from all directions pressed down on me. This was the power of higher beings. The powerful divine force seemed intent on crushing me completely. Seeing my distressed state, the long-haired angel smiled. "Can't handle even this much?" I immediately retorted, "This is nowhere near enough. I had to concentrate and create something with extreme allure to monsters. Something that animals lonely for 1,000 years couldn't refuse." After I determined the will I wanted to imbue, energy instantly burst forth from within my body. After a flash of brilliant light, an even more complex cube slowly materialized. It even had 2 rare attributes attached. These were random attributes added when craftsmen used divine arts, greatly enhancing the trap's power. The angels all praised my forging skills. Next came going with the angels to place the trap. But as soon as we stepped outside, I saw this apocalyptic scene. I hadn't expected that in just a few days the monsters had destroyed Earth to this extent. Soon, the angels found a suitable placement spot on an empty mountaintop. Lisa threw the cube in her hand. The divine power cube in midair instantly radiated powerful energy. But the next second, the cube suddenly turned to dust. Then I felt a violent tremor. At the same time, the monsters seemed to be attracted by something. They immediately formed groups and frantically ran toward the trap's direction. The angels called this type of trap a dungeon. Seeing the effects far exceeded expectations, the long-haired angel once again affirmed my talent for creating traps. Lisa simultaneously activated dungeons in other regions, although those previous dungeons were no longer usable. Lisa had already used magic to transfer the aura of the dungeon I created to them. After chatting with them, I looked at these monsters heading toward death below, and felt somewhat sad. They, like me, had persisted in living for 1,000 years, but in the end were still easily subdued by angels and God. Humans were the same. We had no room to resist and were instantly transported to another world. We were all playthings in the gods' palms. One mistake left me alone on Earth for a full 1,000 years. During these 1,000 years without Rita, I might have gone insane. But now even Rita wasn't by my side. Therefore, I needed to become stronger, strong enough not to be manipulated by anyone or bound by anything, only so that one day I could achieve true and complete freedom. After creating the dungeon, Lisa returned to her miniaturized form to assist me. Originally, 27 more dungeons were needed to stabilize the situation on Earth, but those angels had already returned. To this, Lisa explained, creating such destruction traps requires enormous amounts of magic power. The 3 angels from before have exhausted their magic and need several days to recover. Hearing this, I asked if other angels could come, such as Rita, whom I constantly thought about. Seeing this, Lisa immediately crushed my delusions. Rita was very busy with work because she had pulled strings for me, so she temporarily couldn't come to Earth. After inquiring about Rita's situation, I decided to go to my workshop base to do some preparatory work. Arriving there, I immediately felt much more motivated. Today, I'd make a few traps first and perfect them when the angels returned. However, at this moment, Lisa began contemplating the materials on the table. Given my outstanding performance previously, Lisa decided to give me a small gift. She then used magic to improve the quality of the beast hide I had obtained. Looking at these perfect beast hides in my hands, my desire to forge equipment overcame my plan to make traps. Soon, after measuring the hide, I prepared to make it into gloves and boots, after a period of hammering and processing. Before long, I had obtained rare ice wolf gloves and leather boots. Since this type of defensive equipment was too stuffy to wear, I added a ventilation attribute to it. Lisa was surprised at how quickly I had finished. She was amazed at how rapidly my skills had improved. Next came using the bear hide I had obtained previously to make armor. Lisa beside me smiled contentedly while watching me work. However, she hadn't expected me to work for an entire day. Even as an angel, Lisa was getting sleepy. But I wasn't ready to rest yet, because armor was the main life-saving equipment and had to be made well enough. After a few more hours, my exclamation woke Lisa from her drowsiness. At this moment, a unique grade bear hide armor had appeared. But this wasn't finished yet. I wanted to add some special attack methods to it. I then used the ice wolf's teeth and bones to enhance the armor. The enhanced armor not only doubled in attributes, but also gained another hidden skill. When attacked in battle, the armor would automatically extend spikes for counterattacks. Lisa, combining this with my previous designs, discovered I really liked this type of thing that could extend sharp blades. Seeing her puzzled inquiry, I immediately became serious. Lisa thought it was because I had a grudge against hedgehogs or similar animals. I said, this design is a romance that belongs exclusively to men. Lisa was speechless. She thought it was some special reason, but it turned out to be such a strange one. After enhancement, the armor also gained 2 attributes. Now the materials were almost used up, with only some remaining beast bones left, so I made half of them into bone knives for processing monster corpses. The other half of the bones I used to make myself a new mask. After putting on all the completed equipment, I instantly felt much more handsome. But just then, massive tremors from outside even affected me and Lisa. Lisa then used her divine power to investigate and found it was the military fighting monsters. Hearing this, my expression immediately changed. My area already had a dungeon installed, yet there were still monsters outside. Soon, alarm sounds came through. Second-level monsters had appeared in the district. Hearing this, Lisa also understood that the dungeon hadn't trapped all the second-level monsters. Seeing this, I prepared to go deal with it, just hoping the opponent would be weaker than the previous brown bear. However, before going to battle, I should strengthen my spear first. Soon, I had forged the spear to unique grade. It even unexpectedly gained a 20% critical hit probability. After making thorough preparations, I quickly headed toward the incident location. Before long, Lisa spotted our target. Standing on the ruins ahead was a colossal beast several hundred meters tall. This cheetah struck down a fighter jet with one claw, and even the army's tanks and rockets had no effect on it. The next second, the cheetah directly pounced toward the soldiers on the ground. I had thought everyone had been transported back to the safe otherworld. However, military personnel and some first profession change professionals had actually stayed behind. They could have gone to the otherworld to level up safely, but they chose to stay on Earth to fight. They had done truly admirably. If the Earth and country I lived in were gone, then even being able to go to the other world would be meaningless. I had never claimed to be a savior, but if I could help more people survive, then let me stand until the very last moment. Thinking this, I rapidly charged toward the monster. Its strength was clearly far superior to the previous brown bear. At the same time, the army's tanks also fired directly at it. Violent explosions instantly rose above the monster's head. However, this only caused it slight pain. The enraged monster immediately lifted up the tank, about to swallow it whole. At this moment, I leaped above the monster. Due to my invisibility effect, the monster didn't notice me immediately. The next second, my spear struck fiercely toward the monster. This attack even triggered the spear's critical hit attribute. Seeing me appear again to battle the monster, the surrounding people seemed to find their lost courage. The monster that suffered my violent strike weakly dropped the tank, but immediately after, I felt a strong sense of crisis. The monster hadn't received fatal damage. In its rage, it endured the pain and grabbed toward me. Fortunately, I reacted in time and easily dodged, taking advantage of the monster's wounded state. The soldiers immediately fired a barrage of bullets at the monster, while I went to chase the tank that had just been thrown, because there were still 2 soldiers inside. After opening the tank's top cover, I told them to quickly grab onto me and leave. After rescuing them, I immediately leaped into the air. The next second, I landed heavily on the ground. The soldiers who had narrowly escaped death thanked me breathlessly. They even said they wanted to become my loyal fans. However, the monster that had recovered also noticed me. It was preparing to eliminate the enemy most dangerous to it first. Seeing this, I told the two soldiers behind me to leave first. Lisa said worriedly, "The monster has locked onto your aura, so your invisibility skill cannot activate." Hearing this, I told her not to worry, because I had been prepared for a direct confrontation when I came, just as the battle between us was about to begin. A terrifying bolt of lightning fell from the sky. The next second, the lightning struck the monster's head. The arrival was the Empress, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, and she had actually appeared in her true form. However, the cheetah that had endured the Empress's attack actually wanted to use me as a target for venting. Seeing this, I wasn't afraid of it at all. I dodged this terrifying offensive with a backward jump, but the cheetah actually seized the moment when I was in midair and rammed toward me fiercely with its head. Seeing this scene, even the Empress on the aircraft was worried for me. However, people below quickly noticed something was wrong. I hadn't actually been knocked away. Instead, I had deliberately lured the cheetah to attack me, then used the armor's attached skill for a counterattack. The sudden spikes caused the cheetah to suffer heavy damage again. The next second, it began running frantically, trying to shake me off. It even crashed hard into the building ahead, but I had already seen through its intentions. How could I let it succeed? Leaping into the air, I used the momentum to pounce toward the cheetah. The next moment, my spear achieved another critical hit and fiercely pierced through the cheetah's body. Having suffered repeated damage, the cheetah was now somewhat unable to cope. Seeing this, the army's tanks also began firing at it. The first profession change people on the ground also charged forward. Originally, first-level attacks had no effect on second-level monsters, but even an elephant would fall to the mouths of a million ants, let alone the cheetah that was no longer at its peak. I had thought that by now the cheetah was powerless to struggle, but Lisa told me to quickly deliver the finishing blow, because this leopard was currently attempting to evolve to the third level. Soon, the cheetah's wounds underwent terrifying mutations, with many tentacles growing from them. This was a sign of evolution in progress. Its evolution wasn't complete yet. If we didn't eliminate the tentacles and kill it while we had the chance, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Empress in the sky also launched an attack at this moment, but even when struck by lightning, the cheetah's tentacles still rapidly grew out. Seeing this, the Empress understood that the level gap with the monster was too great. Her attacks couldn't kill it. However, she soon thought of a solution. The Empress said she could apply a buff to me, but this magic would drain all her divine power, and she wasn't sure if I could slay the monster. But there was no time left. I immediately told her to give it a try. Hearing this, the Empress hesitated no more and jumped down from the aircraft the next second. In an instant, the Empress suddenly landed before me. After giving me instructions, the Empress stood up. At the same time, powerful lightning power slowly gathered in her hands. When the Empress's magic took effect on me, the system notified me that I had gained Spirit Thunder. In this state, my attack, movement speed, and critical hit rate would all be greatly enhanced. Moreover, attacks would have a certain probability of dealing additional thunder damage, but afterwards, it would bring certain negative effects. Seeing all the enhancements on my body, even Lisa hadn't expected the Empress to have such powerful buff magic. Feeling the unprecedented powerful force within my body, I immediately shattered all the tentacles and fiercely penetrated the monster's body. The next moment, I even triggered the additional thunder damage. Faced with my enhanced strike, the monster was finally successfully slain by me. The experience gained also brought me to level 28. After the battle ended, I collapsed directly to the ground, while Lisa praised me for doing well. The Empress was still observing whether the cheetah was dead, while I wondered if she hadn't gained any experience points. To this, the Empress told me that she and I weren't in a party, so she couldn't gain experience points. Hearing this, I was dumbfounded. This was the first time I learned about this system. Lisa thought someone like me didn't need to party up, so there was no need to know about it. After confirming the monster's death, the people below began cheering, but soon came the time to distribute the loot. The dead cheetah had also shrunk considerably in size. However, just as these people were about to act, I stopped them. I said that when it came to distributing loot, my share should be the largest. After saying this, I also asked the Empress how to distribute it fairly. The Empress thought I should get 60%, she would get 20%, and the remaining people would split the final share. Her distribution satisfied me greatly, so I turned to look at the others. Seeing no one stood up to object, I directly jumped onto the top of the cheetah. The next second, I extracted from its body a magic stone close to third level. After obtaining the item, I sought the Empress's opinion, and she also agreed to let me take the magic stone. However, the remaining people couldn't accept this distribution method. After all, this was a high-level magic stone. Seeing this scene, Lisa became even more hopeless about these low-level people. I then remembered my mother's teaching, when disputes arise, fists are the best communication tool. I immediately smashed the magic stone back into the monster's body. Then I let these people distribute it themselves. But if my share was even slightly less, then everyone present shouldn't expect to leave safely. Feeling my terrifying pressure, everyone finally sobered up considerably, so they all agreed that I should take the magic stone. Hearing this, I smiled with satisfaction. Indeed, in the age of catastrophe, brute force was still needed to solve problems. When I went to retrieve the magic stone again, the Empress asked me to handle her share of the materials. The compensation would be giving me 40% of her share, and she only wanted the leopard's hide, giving me all the bones. Hearing this, I immediately agreed. Soon I had skinned a lot of beast hide, but due to the large quantity, the Empress started making phone calls to have people come and take it back for her. The remaining people also wanted to do the same as the Empress, but I didn't have a good attitude toward them. They continued to ask for my help. They wanted to quickly get their loot and then go to the other world, but this time I needed to take 50% of all materials. Having no choice, everyone had to agree to my terms. After processing all the materials, I prepared to return home. However, the Empress called out to me. She said my invisibility technique was very strong. If she didn't concentrate, she would almost fail to notice me. The reason she called out to me was because she wanted to party up with me. To this, I decisively refused her. Fortunately, the Empress didn't persist, as she still had to continue fighting on Earth. Perhaps we would encounter each other frequently in the future. She then handed me a business card, telling me I could contact her anytime if needed. After saying this, the Empress turned and left directly. Taking the business card, I looked at it. It turned out the Empress's name was Kang Mirai. However, I didn't plan to contact her, so I put the business card in my pocket. Having obtained so many materials, I returned home with Lisa to continue crafting things. Then we returned to the workshop. For the following time, I still chose to make some traps first. Lisa was contemplating why the monsters on Earth were so strong. The catastrophe had only recently arrived, yet third-level monsters had already appeared. Seeing Lisa's frantic appearance, I told her to go ask the god. But Lisa was somewhat puzzled seeing my calm demeanor, because there weren't even any second profession change professionals on Earth yet. But monsters had already evolved to the third level. Although with the god's help, humans could go to the other world to complete safe tasks and strengthen themselves. However, the monster's evolution speed far exceeded that of humans. This way, balance couldn't be maintained. I calmly said, since we can't find any solution now, we might as well do what we can. During our later conversation, I learned that apparently only my country had third-level monsters. I said, if that's the case, then the monster's rapid evolution is very likely caused by the destruction traps. Lisa was also surprised by my strange idea, but upon reflection, she realized this hypothesis was very likely true. The monsters had felt threatened by the traps, and under extreme pressure, they began evolving frantically. Therefore, the destruction traps were very likely the catalyst. But if we didn't confine them in dungeons, then large numbers of monsters would kill humans to evolve. So even if dungeons were the reason for their leveling up, dungeons were still essential for humanity. Understanding this, I continued crafting destruction traps. Lisa had been watching me for a long time now. She suspected that only forging these things could make me happy. But I made this equipment and traps only to experience various different new things. After all, during those static 1,000 years, I had never experienced such novel things. Hearing this, Lisa told me that as long as I became stronger, there would be more different things waiting for me. This was also my unwavering belief, to work hard to continuously make myself stronger. Time passed, and it was already late at night when the angels who had recovered their magic power came to find me. After perfecting the destruction traps, the angels went to continue setting up dungeons in various countries. Although I didn't know where they would go, I just hoped there would be fewer dangerous monsters than before. Lisa told me not to worry. Even if third-level monsters appeared, it wasn't my fault, because only by setting up large numbers of dungeons could Earth return to normal. After seeing the angels off, I was also somewhat tired and began tidying up to go home. The first thing I did upon returning was take a bath, but looking at my reflection in the mirror, I was indeed somewhat puzzled. After bathing, I asked Lisa, has my body gotten more muscular recently? Hearing this, Lisa thought I was too slow to notice, because my body grew with each level up. Hearing this, I understood. No wonder I'd recently noticed my face getting more handsome. Although Lisa wasn't interested in my face, she still said that in human eyes, I had indeed become more handsome. Getting Lisa's confirmation, I was extremely happy and immediately began showing off my muscles frantically. Seeing this, Lisa immediately threw potato chips at me, telling me not to block her view of the TV. As I left, I reminded Lisa to sleep early, then returned to my bedroom. In the eyes of such higher beings, appearance was no longer anything special. Lisa felt my most remarkable quality was that persistent, unyielding determination. Soon the next day arrived when the first ray of morning sunlight came through the window. I slowly awakened from my dreams, but then I discovered the system had suddenly issued a notification. It turned out I had gained another new skill, rest. After hearing I had gained the rest skill, Lisa hurriedly flew over. Seeing me take this skill so lightly, she told me that mastering rest had an SS level difficulty. Lisa was curious how I had learned it, because even she hadn't mastered it. This was all because in the past, every night I would study how to sleep more comfortably. So today it naturally awakened. Understanding the acquisition conditions, Lisa now knew why she hadn't mastered it. But from Lisa's words, it seemed the skill's purpose was simply to rest well. However, I quickly discovered a contradiction. If that was its only function, Lisa wouldn't have been so surprised before. So I immediately asked her to quickly tell me the skill's advantages. But before that, she decided to first tell me about skill evolution to related information. All the skills we obtained could continue to grow, just like profession advancement. After evolution, the skill's power would be greatly enhanced. My combat arts, spear arts, and rest skills could all continue to evolve. However, forging and butchering had already reached their limits. Invisibility wasn't yet an active skill, so it couldn't evolve for now. But the reason my combat arts and spear arts hadn't upgraded yet was because the upgrade conditions were too difficult. Seeing I still wasn't clear on the specific requirements, Lisa told me to open my information panel and check. But after seeing the evolution conditions required, I was immediately dumbfounded. Spear arts evolution simply couldn't be achieved in the short term. I hadn't even seen a real third-level monster yet, let alone obtain a fourth-level magic stone. The rest skill would only have significant effects after evolution. Currently, it could only make recovery during sleep stronger. But I was only level 28 now, and didn't even know divine power magic. If skills couldn't improve, future battles would only become increasingly difficult. Lisa judged that my slow leveling was probably due to my unique profession. The reason I was currently stronger than everyone else was thanks to the supreme martial arts I had practiced during the 1,000 years. But as time passed, past, once everyone advanced and strengthened their divine power, I would quickly be left behind. However, if I truly mastered divine power, I might grow to become a monster that surpassed everyone and rivaled the god. Moreover, Lisa had a premonition that day wouldn't be too far away. But at this moment, she hurriedly interrupted her own train of thought. Because thinking further, my existence would instead become a huge danger. Just 2 days after Lisa finished explaining skills to me, I had just gotten up when I saw breakfast placed on the table. It turned out my mother had returned from the other world to make it for me. But after cooking, she hurriedly left again. While eating breakfast, I began asking Lisa how to complete those skill upgrade conditions. Because some of the monsters that needed to be hunted apparently didn't exist on Earth. Hearing this, Lisa told me not to worry. After divine power activated, monsters that didn't originally exist on Earth would gradually appear. The higher the divine power concentration, the faster those life forms would descend. At this moment, a news report on TV suddenly caught mine and Lisa's attention. Looking at the familiar building shown, Lisa and I immediately recognized it. This was exactly where we had battled the cheetah 2 days ago. The giant cheetah's corpse was also in one of the squares. But when the camera turned to the square, the original giant cheetah had completely vanished. I thought those people from that time had completely processed it, but Lisa thought the matter wasn't so simple. Just as the news reported, the scene where the monster's corpse had been was very clean. Moreover, the report mentioned that the people who had previously hunted the monster together had all disappeared as well. Hearing this, Lisa and I were extremely shocked. Many people speculated that the dungeon had devoured both the people and the monster. But as a creator, I understood this couldn't possibly be the dungeon's doing. Soon I thought of another possibility, that there were still other monsters present at the scene. Lisa was certain the giant cheetah was dead. After all, I had taken its magic stone, so this hunt should have been concluded successfully. Then Lisa spoke of the only possibility, that the monster was carrying a cub in its belly. After hearing Lisa's words, I understood this was probably the truth. Because just moments ago on the TV, although it was only a brief glimpse, I still saw a black cheetah. It seemed its greatest ability was invisibility, which was how it managed to deceive so many people. I couldn't help but feel regretful. If I had completely butchered the giant cheetah back then, this hidden danger would never have remained. But Lisa believed the root cause was those people fighting over materials and not butchering the corpse in time. Lisa's words couldn't absolve me of responsibility. I had still been too careless. Seeing my dejected appearance, Lisa suddenly felt she still hadn't completely understood me. I finally realized that when the cheetah was clearly in a hopeless situation. Its struggle wasn't for advancement, but to hide the cub concealed in its belly. I hadn't completely butchered the corpse before, leaving the last half for the participants at the scene. Thinking back now, the cheetah's cub must have quietly hidden inside using its invisibility skill. And after I left, people quarreled over the distribution of spoils. So the mother cheetah's corpse was likely left for a long time, and the cub was probably born then. But now, Lisa thought of an even worse outcome. There were many participants in killing the cheetah. The small cheetah devoured its mother's corpse when it was born, and there were many first-level humans present. At these words, I trembled all over and asked, "Is this small cheetah third level?" Lisa said with certainty, "With special invisibility skills, the small cheetah's strength is undoubtedly third level." Seeing this, I fell silent and turned off the noisy television. Lisa really wanted to know if I had confidence to face the monster. To this, I was naturally full of confidence. Its ability was also invisibility, and I didn't necessarily have to lose to it. Seeing my confident appearance, Lisa also gave me some good news. If its invisibility was excellent, then its defense and attack would be relatively weak. And it had just been born, so its strength wouldn't exceed the previous cheetah by much. So I prepared to go make some new equipment. I had to hurry and catch it. Otherwise, if it came to the city center, those remaining humans would be in danger. But then I suddenly remembered there was someone else who could help, the Empress, who could give me powerful buffs. So I prepared to actively take out my phone and call her. Seeing this, Lisa reminded me this would be equivalent to exposing my identity. Soon I came to a phone booth near the workshop. Then I began dialing Kong Mireille's number. Although I had said before I wouldn't contact her, the current situation was special. With her help, my chances of winning would greatly increase. At the same time, the Empress also received the call, but the public phone number displayed puzzled her. After connecting, she didn't recognize my voice. Helplessly, I had to reveal the title those people had given me. Hearing this, the Empress finally knew it was me looking for her. I didn't waste words and immediately told her the real reason the monster's corpse had disappeared. Understanding the situation was very serious, the Empress decisively agreed to come assist me. What I didn't expect was that she also said she would contact the military to assist me together. The helper was now secured, and it was time to make some equipment adjustments. After arriving at the workshop, I took out many materials I had received from the Empress. Targeting the monster's invisibility trait, I wanted to create a targeted weapon. As for weapons, my long spear should be more than sufficient. But what I wanted was a long-range throwing equipment. The opponent's skill was invisibility, but it probably wasn't as strong as my invisibility skill. At this time, sneak attacks would be the best strategy. In no time, I made the mother cheetah's bones into a harpoon. It was different from ordinary spears. The barbed tip could firmly entangle prey, and I would add other things to it, although the harpoon had strong penetrating power. But if the rope behind it was broken, that would be terrible, so I decided to use the cheetah skin as rope. Soon, Lisa looked at the exquisitely crafted equipment and suspected I had used divine magic in its creation. Hearing this, I was speechless. If I mastered divine power, I wouldn't need to go through all this trouble. If I mastered divine power, I could go directly beat up the monster right now. Finally, after several hours, everything I needed was finished. Seeing that I was going to use the mother cheetah's bones to hunt its child, Lisa felt I was too evil. But this was far from enough, so I took out the high-level magic magic stone I'd obtained. Seeing this, Lisa hurriedly told me to stop. She hadn't expected I would bet everything on one harpoon, but this was making full use of resources. If I couldn't kill the small cheetah, keeping this magic stone would be useless. Soon, the harpoon infused with the magic stone's power radiated strong energy. The harpoon had now reached high-grade unique level, with all attributes increased by 20%. This effect was twice as high as I had expected. This must be the power of a high-level magic stone. Taking the newly made equipment, I once again came to the phone booth to contact the Empress. She was also already on her way to the square, and I told her not to go in immediately. The monster had invisibility skills, and rashly entering might result in an attack. The small cheetah should be near where the mother cheetah died. It was very likely seeking revenge for its mother. So I reminded the Empress to be careful. After all, she and I were the ones who killed the mother cheetah. Then Lisa suddenly noticed vehicles ahead. The person in the car was the Empress Kang Mirai, though she still didn't know my identity. The Empress drove while asking about my plan. I planned to use the harpoon to pin it down so it couldn't use its invisibility skill. I would enter the incident site first. Soon Lisa also sensed the small cheetah was nearby. It seemed it hadn't discovered my arrival yet, making a sneak attack even easier. Then I firmly drove the other end of the harpoon into the ground. Now I just needed to wait for the small cheetah to come. Its aura absolutely couldn't escape mine and Lisa's perception. After some time, an uncomfortable cold aura slowly spread. At this moment beside me, the small cheetah hadn't discovered me. It was very confident in its invisibility skill. Little did it know Lisa and I had already locked onto it, and in the invisible state, my passive provided a 10% damage bonus each. The next second, I suddenly threw the harpoon. The high-speed flying harpoon carried sharp, killing intent. Then it viciously penetrated the small cheetah's body. The unexpected damage made the cheetah cry out in pain, but there was more pain waiting for it. But even though my attacks had extra damage bonuses, the harpoon only penetrated half of the small cheetah's body. Fortunately, its defense and attack weren't very strong, otherwise the effect would have been greatly reduced. Feeling the pain, the cheetah now fiercely stared at me. Lisa immediately gave me a warning, and I reacted. Then the monster's attack instantly struck toward me. Its speed was unbelievably fast, but I still managed to dodge this strike. Just as the cheetah prepared to pursue, the harpoon I had crafted finally played its major role. The cheetah discovered it couldn't advance, because the harpoon behind it had tethered it, and the barbs in its body made it suffer even more. The rope was very sturdy as I had imagined. Next, I just needed to hit the cheetah with all the prepared harpoons, and this battle would be mostly won. The next moment, I quickly picked up another harpoon. Then, taking advantage of the cheetah's painful distraction, I suddenly threw it out, and this strike also pierced into the cheetah's flesh. Hearing the monster's terrifying wail again, I wanted to continue using all the harpoons to nail the small cheetah to death. But soon I sensed that crisis had arrived. The opponent actually endured the severe pain and launched an attack at me. I raised both hands to receive this strike. In an instant, my gauntlets were completely shattered. The powerful impact also made me retreat several meters. But what pained me most was that the special bone blades I had crafted for the gauntlets had become fragments. But fortunately, my arms weren't injured. I'd have to repair them later. Seeing this scene, Lisa was somewhat stunned. She hadn't expected those gauntlets to actually work. Just then, the cheetah immediately swung its claws. But what it unleashed was a sharp energy blood blade. Although I dangerously jumped away from this strike, seeing the blood blade's massive destructive power, Lisa and I were both frightened. Lisa, coming to her senses, said this was its skill. The cheetah's attack caught me somewhat off guard. I really hadn't expected it to have long-range skills, but this was the strength a third level should have. And now the cheetah showed obvious sluggish movement. Due to violent activity, its wounds were now bleeding profusely. The more it struggled, the heavier its injuries became. The small cheetah seemed to understand the current situation. The next second, it actually bit down on the harpoon's rope with its mouth. Seeing this, Lisa told me to act quickly, otherwise it might break all the ropes. So, I hurriedly drove the iron post securing the harpoon into the ground. Previously facing only wild beasts, I had thought monsters had no intelligence. But now it seemed that after monsters evolved to high levels, both strength and wisdom had significantly improved. I was now prepared and was about to use the harpoon to interrupt the cheetah's actions. The small cheetah was also very decisive in launching another blood blade, but I still successfully dodged it. Then I forcefully threw the harpoon. This time my target was its paw. The 3 harpoons in its body instantly made the small cheetah scream frantically, and the harpoon in its paw prevented it from continuing to attack. Lisa praised my throwing technique because I had shot so accurately. Hearing Lisa's rare praise, I gladly accepted it, but it was still too early to let my guard down. The small cheetah couldn't be killed so easily. Just then, a loud sound came from behind me. The person was the Empress Kang Mirai. She had now arrived with reinforcements. Seeing the monster struggling desperately ahead, the Empress immediately began charging an attack. The violent lightning began swirling around her. Then the Empress used her skill. The lightning power in her palms was obviously several times stronger than last time. This strike also heavily hit the small cheetah, and now their car also quickly stopped in front of me. After getting out, the Empress was very surprised I had really caught the monster. Her arrival made me very excited. The Empress had come at just the right time. Next, I quickly discussed strategy with her. I planned to have the Empress use lightning to coordinate with my attacks on the monster. Kang Mirai's strength improved very quickly. It seemed her identity was really not simple, but this was also for the best. The stronger she was, the simpler the hunt would be. The cheetah that had suffered the Empress's strike finally stood up, but its trembling body couldn't hide its decline, and now our hunting battle was truly beginning. Then I again drove the other end of the harpoon's post into the ground. The small cheetah had just been paralyzed by the the Empress's lightning power, plus the 3 harpoons stuck in its body. It simply couldn't dodge now. The next second, I threw the harpoon with all my strength. This time my target was the cheetah's other paw. The small cheetah was very powerful. I couldn't be sure when it would break the posts, so I couldn't miss any opportunity to attack. Next, I asked about the Empress's condition. She said she could launch a lightning strike immediately, but she said if she waited another 2 minutes, she could launch an even more powerful lightning attack. Hearing this, I told her to strike again in 2 minutes. For now, I would entangle this monster. The small cheetah that had suffered repeated attacks still struggled to stand up. Seeing this, Lisa and I understood its stamina wasn't completely depleted. At this moment, the harpoon in my hand was ready to strike again. The next moment, the cheetah was once again struck by me, letting out a painful cry. But even though its paws were too painful to lift, it still launched several terrifying blood blades at me. I had thought its target was me, but the cheetah's strikes actually hit the surrounding buildings and ground, just as I was curious why it was doing this. The ground around me began shaking violently. This was the cheetah's other skill, mineralization. Seeing this, Kangmure prepared to interrupt the cheetah's skill first, but the small cheetah quickly sensed the powerful lightning force, so it began frantically attacking the small car. The cheetah's attacks were very effective. The Empress was disrupted by its attacks and couldn't aim or approach the cheetah at all. Then the small cheetah became even more vicious. It actually forcibly pulled its leg out, even if it meant being torn by the harpoon. The beast's ferocity made me shudder, but it also strengthened my determination to kill it. Now the cheetah's foot was no longer bound, but I had to wait for the Empress to paralyze it with lightning before striking. Thinking this, I jumped onto the Empress's car roof and asked if she had any other useful equipment. Hearing this, a soldier nearby pulled out a gun and asked if this would work. Seeing this, the Empress and I both fell silent, but now the gun should be the best choice, so I had the Empress give me the gun. Taking the gun, I quickly ran toward the cheetah's direction. The small cheetah's survival instinct was too strong. Its madness made me realize close combat was unwise, and those posts securing the harpoons might not hold, because the cheetah's mineralization skill had made the soil no longer compact. Thinking this, the opponent had already broken free from one post, although the rope was sturdy and hadn't broken without the harpoon. The Empress nearby was very anxious, but there was still 1 minute before she could launch the powerful lightning strike. The small cheetah became increasingly frantic, continuously activating its mineralization skill. Worried it would completely break free, I immediately raised the gun in my hand. Then I aimed at it and unleashed a barrage. Unexpectedly, the shots I fired actually injured the cheetah's eyes. This was thanks to my shooting skills reaching maximum level. The Empress in the car was also stunned. She even suspected my gun had been enhanced, because third-level monsters wouldn't be harmed by guns under any circumstances. The only possibility was that my technique had made the firearm exceed its limits. Soon my firepower couldn't suppress the small cheetah anymore, and I urgently called to the Empress. She immediately responded. Just 7 more seconds and she could launch the powerful lightning strike. At this moment, the small cheetah successfully broke free from all the harpoons, but I instantly threw away the gun, then picked up a harpoon and viciously stabbed the cheetah. The intense pain left it unable to retaliate, and the Empress's attack was finally fully charged. The next second, lightning exploded at her fingertips. Then terrifying lightning fell on the cheetah's head. In an instant, the monster was completely engulfed by thunder. Kangmure continuously output lightning, but the dying cheetah still tried to kill the Empress. After being unbound, the cheetah immediately activated its invisibility skill. This made Kangmure completely unaware of where it would attack from. But before the cheetah could hit the Empress, I had already reached above its head. The next second, the harpoon in my hand viciously pierced through its skull. The small cheetah, already at its last breath, finally collapsed to the ground. The Empress, having escaped disaster, was curious how I had discovered the cheetah, but I didn't answer her, instead using countless ropes to tie up the cheetah. Lisa didn't understand why I hadn't immediately killed the monster. Seeing this, I told her I couldn't hog everything alone. When the Empress walked over, she was surprised by my actions, because this time I actively invited her to team up, and I didn't want to monopolize all the experience. Although my invitation felt very sudden to her, the Empress still happily joined my team. Soon the system also notified us that we had successfully created a team. Looking at the page I had never seen before, my face was filled with desire for the unknown. The Empress looked puzzled seeing me so happy, but when she asked if this was my first time teaming up, I immediately regained composure and began making excuses. Next was to butcher this third-level monster. Looking at the cheetah's dying appearance, I bid it final farewell, then directly killed it. The experience gained from killing the cheetah actually brought me to level 36, with all attributes increased by 10 points. Lisa beside me, seeing me jump several levels, looked gratified, but just after leveling up I felt dizzy. This was due to gaining a large amount of experience at once. The Empress nearby also felt nauseous. Lisa told me that killing third-level monsters gave much more experience than second-level ones. Under continuous leveling, the side effects made us very uncomfortable, but we would recover after a while. After some time, the Empress and I finally returned to normal. Now it was time to distribute the spoils. I had originally wanted to use the intact cheetah skin to remake armor, but the cheetah skin could no longer make complete equipment. Although losing the skin was regrettable, if I could get a magic stone, that would be sufficient compensation. Monster magic stones didn't have a 100% drop rate, and the higher the level, the lower the probability of condensing magic stones. After cutting open the cheetah skin, I reached inside and rummaged around. Soon I actually felt something and immediately pulled it out. What glittered in my hand was a third-level magic stone. This meant I was only 2 conditions away from skill evolution. But now that I had teamed up with the Empress, the magic stone should have her share too. Seeing Hearing this, the Empress said her contribution wasn't great, but I said, without you, I couldn't have achieved the kill. After hearing my words, Kang Mireille seemed very happy. She hadn't expected to gain my recognition. For the spoils, she also distributed according to this contribution. She saw that I really needed the magic stone. Then she actively told me the magic stone didn't need to be shared with her, as long as I could give her half of the butchered monster remains. Seeing my surprised expression, the Empress gave me a reasonable explanation. She said, among all the various professions on Earth today, craftsmen with butchering and forging skills are the most popular. If you can't get rewards through butchering, then killing however many monsters is meaningless. So your unmatched butchering technique is more important than anything. Just as I began butchering the cheetah, Kang Mireille called people to help her take the materials. Seeing this scene, Lisa thought I should build good relations with the Empress. After all, people with such background and strength were rare. Although Lisa was right, socializing was still too difficult for someone with social anxiety like me. After some time, I finally finished butchering the small cheetah completely. The people Kang Mireille brought also brought many trucks, and she directed everyone to start moving materials. After handling the materials, the Empress thanked me for not only bringing her to kill the cheetah for experience, but also giving her large amounts of monster materials. Seeing this, I said that being able to kill the small cheetah, she had also provided great help. But then, Kang Mireille smiled and wanted to disband our team. Hearing this, my heart felt as if it had been shattered. I wondered if I had done something that disgusted her. The Empress said, I feel the gap between myself and you is too large. If we continue, I might very well drag you down. When my strength catches up to yours, I will definitely send you another team invitation. Knowing her true thoughts, I didn't force it and agreed that when the time came, I would definitely consider it seriously. Getting my response, the Empress greatly appreciated my character. She thought I was as principled as before. At the same time, I also grasped the hand the Empress extended. The next second, our team was disbanded. Although I had regained the freedom of being alone, losing a teammate still made me somewhat sad. But I also respected Kang Mireille's choice. We would join hands again when we both became stronger. Meanwhile, the people who came with the Empress told her it was time to leave. But just as they were about to drive off, Kang Mireille suddenly remembered something important. She hurriedly called out to me as I was preparing to go home. It turned out she wanted my contact information or real name, and promised she would never tell anyone. Seeing the Empress in the sunset, I had a feeling she was trustworthy. Plus, after 2 consecutive battles together, I thought I already had the answer in my heart. Then I decided to give her both my name and contact information. After learning my name, Kang Mireille happily said she would definitely contact me, and this seemed to be the first time I had exchanged numbers with a girl. Seeing my current state, Lisa couldn't help but tease me. In the evening, I returned to the forging workshop. After killing the small cheetah and obtaining the 3rd level magic stone, my marksmanship was only 2 conditions away from evolution. But the SS level rest skill I had obtained was still far from ready, especially the 500 liters of troll blood required. So far, no trolls had been discovered on Earth. To better kill trolls in the future, I asked Lisa many questions about troll knowledge. Hearing that they had extremely strong regenerative abilities, I finally understood why the rest skill evolution required troll blood. It seemed this could give the evolved rest healing abilities. My guess was confirmed by Lisa, and my anticipation for the rest skill continued to grow. Next, I needed to strengthen my spear again, otherwise it might not even be able to damage upcoming monsters. I really wanted Lisa to share some of the magic stones for making the dungeon with me, but this was refused because these materials needed to be recalled by heaven if not used up. Without magic stone enhancement, I thought about handling other materials first, but the monster meat seemed to still contain toxins, and I didn't know how to solve this for the moment, unless I immediately gained poison resistance. But suddenly, the high temperature burned my hand, and the monster meat fell down. I hadn't expected the eternal flame to actually like eating monster meat. I had wanted to enjoy it myself after gaining poison resistance. Although Lisa thought the monster meat would have rotted long before then, seeing the meat being refined by the flames made me feel bad. But then the meat pieces inside the eternal flame underwent changes. It didn't seem to turn to charcoal as I had thought. After the eternal flame finished refining the meat, what emerged made my eyes brighten. The refined meat became elastic and tough. Seeing my excited appearance, Lisa was curious what I planned to do with it. I hammered the meat while telling her my thoughts. This was refined by the eternal flame, so it must have extremely high fire resistance. If I used it to make something like a gun slingshot, it would definitely be very effective. Then I threw large amounts of meat into the flames. While processing the refined meat, I began drawing slingshot blueprints according to my measurements, and the cheetah's teeth would serve as ammunition. Their sharpness far exceeded that of bones. Soon, many large tooth bullets were successfully completed. After several hours, the slingshot gun I needed was also finished. Unfortunately, I couldn't use enhancement on it. The slingshot was basically finished, and the refined meat was the best bowstring. This new equipment would definitely have very high lethality, with the only drawback being difficulty of use, because just loading ammunition was already very troublesome for me. It seemed unrealistic to use it continuously in real combat, but it was just right as a finishing move. Fortunately, after Divine Arts, the slingshot successfully gained 20% loading speed. This was an unexpected delight for me. But Lisa still felt the slingshot had too many flaws, because its length plus the teeth was about 3 meters. However, this equipment was originally intended to deal with large monsters. I planned to make the cheetah's bones into weapons for small monsters. After forging new equipment all day, I didn't rest the next morning either, but continued making the dungeon. The angels had also just recovered their magic power, so they all came to watch me make the dungeon. Now Lisa had the 17th dungeon I had made. Given that my trap effects were very excellent, she told me I only needed to make 8 more, because the angels' record showed, no matter how good dungeons were, there couldn't be too many. many. If all monsters were attracted into dungeons, then the excess traps would collide with the concentrated divine power, causing unprecedented powerful monsters to appear on Earth. They would then achieve stronger evolution through the dungeons. Hearing this, I couldn't stop trembling all over. If monsters equal to or surpassing angels appeared, Earth would probably cease to exist. This was why Lisa told me I only needed to make 8 more dungeons. But the male Angel Hill nearby seemed somewhat impatient, because too many unexpected troubles had appeared on Earth. And in his view, among all these troubles, I was the most troublesome one. Angel Hill wanted Lisa to properly discipline me in the future, but Lisa refuted him, because she was sent by God to assist me, not to discipline. And she had even less right to constrain what I did. Hearing this, Hill couldn't help but mock Lisa, thinking she was far too rigid. As soon as his words fell, divine power began slowly gathering in Lisa's hands. The next second, a divine power light sword appeared in her hand. Then Lisa even pointed the sword at Hill. She really disliked people interfering with her work. Seeing this, Hill found Lisa even more unreasonable. I was frightened. This seemed to be the first time I had seen Lisa so angry. The other 2 angels also sided with Lisa. They all thought Hill shouldn't overstep his authority and interfere with Lisa's mission. Focusing on their own responsibilities was what they should do. However, as fellow angels, they still restrained the angry Lisa. Although angels always prided themselves on being higher beings, when they quarreled, they were no different from ordinary people. Seeing Lisa like this, I felt the distance between us didn't seem very far. After resolving their conflict, the angels once again set off on their journey to set traps. Lisa sat on my head as before. After Hill and the others left, Lisa said she shouldn't have shown me her other side. Hearing this, I thought there was nothing wrong with it. I was happy to see angels' different emotions, but Lisa felt I was too obtuse, because angels had long overcome various emotions toward mortals. But thinking of Hill's appearance, I felt he didn't seem like someone who had overcome various emotions. Seeing this, Lisa also told me the real reason. It turned out Hill was jealous of the skills and talents I possessed. He couldn't suppress his inner emotions. Hearing Lisa's words, I was somewhat stunned. In their eyes, was I no longer considered mortal? Coming back to my senses, I thought she was really overestimating me, but Lisa said lightly that I was underestimating myself too much. Back in the workshop, Lisa was about to give me rewards for completing this trap-making mission. Hearing about rewards, I quickly told her I only needed practical things. Lisa looked disdainful at my appearance, because the reward she was giving would greatly surprise me. Due to divine power descending on Earth, many new metal ore vein dungeons had appeared, and she would tell me the locations of these dungeons. Hearing about metals that had never existed on Earth before, I immediately became interested. This was indeed the best reward. Soon we came outside the workshop. Compared to the crowds of people before, it was now extremely desolate. At this time, Lisa asked if I was reminded of Earth's 1,000-year stillness. Although the streets were almost identical to before, the current situation was very different, because Earth now had not only me, but many humans like the Empress who were fighting. I was no longer alone. Seeing my high spirits, Lisa was also happy for me. After some time, Lisa brought me to a forest. The strange passage ahead was the dungeon she had mentioned. Fortunately, this place wasn't far from H country, and I reached my destination on foot. But just as I was about to enter directly, a prohibition notice appeared above, because this dungeon had a minimum level restriction of 50. Seeing this made me feel like I'd been played. To this, Lisa said, "What kind of minor character do you take me for?" Hearing this, I listed her various shortcomings at home, and made Lisa become embarrassed and angry. But this kind of prohibition couldn't stop higher beings like them. Lisa lightly waved her hand. The passage that had just prohibited entry immediately opened to me. Seeing this, I praised Lisa for being more useful than I had imagined, but my praise sounded like insults to her ears, and now I had successfully passed through the passage. Looking around, there were many special metal ores in the cave. Then I excitedly asked Lisa what to do next. I had thought Lisa would have some instructions, but unexpectedly she pulled out a safety helmet for me. It seemed Lisa was having me become a miner and dig personally. Just as I shouldered the shovel and prepared to strike, Lisa immediately told me the real metal wasn't the outer ore. These stone monsters' hearts were the metal, but I didn't think these looked like monsters. I had thought the stone monsters would suddenly ambush me, but Lisa said they couldn't move at all. Hearing this, I was somewhat disappointed, because the coming time would be too boring. Fortunately, I had prepared new tools when forging before, a heavy axe hammer. Seeing this, Lisa also thought this equipment was very suitable for dealing with ore monsters. But this equipment had many flaws. Once I obtained better metal materials, I would probably discard. After preparing myself, I swung the axe hammer with all my strength. The next moment, the hard monster was shattered into pieces of stone. What I didn't expect was that I not only gained experience points, but also leveled up my critical strike skill. What left me speechless was that the monster couldn't even withstand a single hit. The shining metal blocks left behind when the monster cracked open were their hearts, which were also the special ores I needed for this trip. Usually, when ore monsters detected danger, they would use their metal hearts to strengthen the parts of their bodies being attacked. Therefore, having two people mine together was the most convenient approach. However, since the opponent was only a second-level monster, it could hardly withstand my attacks. In the following time, I began endlessly collecting metal hearts, and the experience I gained brought me to level 38. But I had already been working for a whole day, and at this moment I was bored to the extreme. In this dungeon, there was no adventure, no excitement, nothing at all. We continued deeper into the cave, and soon we encountered a level 3 large metal monster. It was about 20 levels higher than those small monsters I had killed before, so naturally its defense wasn't something the axe hammer could easily break through. But for dealing with this type of large high-defense monster. My newly crafted slingshot gun came in handy. I immediately shouldered the equipment and leaped above the metal monster. When the sharp-toothed bullets hit the monster's body, a crisp shattering sound echoed throughout the cave. The next second, the large metal monster also turned into fragments. But at this time, the drawback of the slingshot gun also appeared. The bullets fired deeply drilled into the ground, and the powerful impact force caused them to break. Seeing this, I thought about how I couldn't waste bullets here. Otherwise, it would be hard to replenish them when they ran out. Seeing me thinking again about how to recycle and reuse, Lisa still advised me to collect the metal hearts first. The hearts dropped by large metal monsters would be very smooth and even harder. Lisa said that although this wasn't the highest grade metal core, it was sufficient for the current Earth. Finding such rare special metals instantly increased my interest. However, since I couldn't use the slingshot gun, I had to swing the axe hammer and slowly excavate. A week later, the metal monsters in the cave had almost been completely cleared out by me. But unfortunately, I didn't encounter any higher level metal kings. After collecting all the metal hearts, Lisa and I left the dungeon. But as soon as we came out, the people ahead surprised me somewhat. It turned out that the angels who had finished setting up the underground city had returned, and they also brought good news. That was, under the operation of the underground city, Earth had returned to normal and successfully completed its upgrade. The monsters were also slowly disappearing, and now Earth's civilization had recovered. Many people also returned from other worlds after receiving notifications. Heaven would also restrict the mission rewards from other worlds to prevent humans from staying there continuously. So when we just returned, the streets had once again restored their former bustle. After returning from the dungeon, I had been crafting equipment. The armor before me, enhanced by special metals and my techniques, had now reached legendary level. It even came with powerful passive effects. Seeing this scene, I couldn't help but get excited. This meant that when I wore the armor in invisibility mode, attacking with a spear would grant me a 50% attack power bonus. Moreover, after crafting this equipment, my blacksmith profession also upgraded to mythical level. Next was the choice of weapons, and it was time to abandon the spear. I immediately threw it along with the old armor into the eternal flame. At this time, the system prompted that the eternal fire had completed its upgrade. The eternal flame now also looked very happy, but after being busy all day, I was still too tired, so I decided to go home and rest well. I woke up early the next morning. The scene in the living room really made me nostalgic. My parents had returned from the other world, and my mother was making breakfast as before. Since the massive arrival of monsters, I hadn't had a proper meal in too long. But halfway through the meal, Father hurriedly had to go to work. Because everything had returned to normal now, his previous work still needed him to continue. Although many people chose to quit their jobs to become monster hunters, Father still wanted to be more stable. Before leaving, I hurriedly called out to Father. Then I had him put on the thin defensive underwear I had made earlier. This could avoid most damage from low-level monsters. After saying goodbye to Father, Mother said that universities had reopened and asked if I wanted to go back to school. Upon hearing this, I immediately refused, because I didn't need it now. Mother supported my decision and didn't force me to continue university. After finishing the meal, I also prepared the same underwear for Mother, but she was more interested in the bag in my hand. However, this bag was very heavy, so I didn't give it to Mother, but instead gave her a lightweight portable backpack. After leaving home, I still returned to the workshop, but when I opened the door, everything inside had been completely renewed. It turned out this was a reward from the god. All the tools in the workshop were now high level. The materials for these tools would only be available after Earth evolved to the second stage. Just as I was looking with bright eyes and thanking Lisa and the god, she told me that these weren't all the rewards. Lisa then brought me a book for acquiring poison resistance skills, which would allow me to resist toxins from level 4 monsters. Seeing this, I was even more excited, as this meant I could eat monster meat freely in the future. Next was the final reward. Earth had completed its evolution, so Lisa was going to tell me the location of the dungeon where trolls appeared, and that place was actually in Country N. After Lisa informed me of the country where the trolls were located, I immediately bought a ticket and came to the airport. The reason I was so quick was because this was my first time taking a plane, but Lisa suddenly held her forehead, saying I seemed to have forgotten something. She said that Earth's order had basically been completely restored, and going abroad required a passport and visa. This was basic common sense, but I seemed to have neither. At this, I was first startled, then smugly said I had another way. That was to use invisibility effect to sneak over. Just as I thought, no one in the airport could discover me. Like this, I happily boarded the plane. It wasn't until I sat down that I understood modern surveillance couldn't detect invisibility skill. Looking at the young lady next to me pushing over some drinks, I even shamelessly took a bottle. This made her instantly dumbfounded, not knowing what had happened. During the flight, I discovered fighter jets outside. According to the newly released guide on the plane, these were to deal with aerial monster crises, so the entire flight was escorted by fighter jets carrying capable individuals. I understood why the plane tickets were so expensive, and to reach the end city where the troll dungeon was located, I needed to transfer once at a city. I slowly lay down to sleep, thinking to myself that this trip seemed very smooth. However, when I arrived at a city, an accident still occurred. The sudden monster attack left both Lisa and me silent, but I wasn't someone who feared trouble, so I put on my mask and prepared to take action. Lisa said this wasn't an ordinary monster incident, but very likely a problem with the destruction traps. Although a large number of monsters had all been contained within it, those that remained, or the monsters that appeared after Earth's evolution, had undergone massive mutations, and they were more powerful than previous monsters. Looking at the surrounding environment, Lisa said these monsters could absorb the aura of destruction traps, thereby changing the external environment. In other words, although ordinary monsters were trapped inside dungeons dungeons, the monsters that overflowed from dungeons could turn the outside world into dungeons as well. This was the overflow phenomenon most likely to occur during the early stages of world evolution or dungeon birth. Lisa told me to eliminate the monsters quickly, because these mutated individuals might resonate with other dungeons. If I let any monster escape today, new overflows would inevitably occur in other places. Her words shocked me. Earth's situation would be very dangerous now. This also made me angry. They clearly said I was coming to receive rewards, but ended up making me clean up the mess again. Helplessly, Lisa said we must stop the overflow, and she would issue me a mission with rewards being status-related skills. Upon hearing this, I immediately accepted the mission with joy. But at this time, a huge sandstorm suddenly occurred nearby. Some capable individuals were no match for the monsters behind them. Seeing this, the security personnel wanted to try using guns, but they couldn't even cause a slight scratch. These mutated monsters were called flame lizards, and they could even speak simple words. Lisa told me not to be careless. They were second-level mutated monsters capable of using special abilities. To this, I showed her my current armor and spear. How could this type of monster possibly block my attacks? After taking the previous spear to be tempered in the eternal flame, combined with the high-grade metal hearts I had obtained, the spear had now become a unique grade death black spear, not only with 2,400 attack power, but also with a special effect. Critical hit probability and damage would increase by 30%. With just one thrust, the level -62 flame lizard before me was directly killed. The feel of the death black spear was simply too good. I was growing more and more fond of it. However, after Lisa's investigation, this lizard had no magic stone and could only be butchered later. Due to the battle just now, I was also discovered by everyone. Just then, another flame lizard quietly approached from behind. The flames from its mouth arrived almost instantly, but my speed wasn't something this type of monster could match. However, the lizard's attack range was too large, so I had to lure it outside first. I suddenly turned around, actually planning to take this attack head-on. The next second, the huge fireball knocked me outside. The massive area damage splashed countless flames and thick smoke around, but my thinking was correct. Indeed, the upgraded armor wouldn't be injured even when taking attacks head-on. Just as I was about to let loose and fight with all my might, I saw someone ahead fighting with lizards. It turned out that the capable individuals present were organizing people to fight the lizards together. Since I was knocked outside, the invisibility effect activated again. Now the battle between flame lizards and capable individuals had fully begun, but the mutated monsters were far more powerful than before. Those capable individuals with lower strength were clearly no match for them. Just as someone was about to get injured, a person covered in armor timely blocked the attack. But the battle was chaotic, and a sudden fireball from behind left him no time to dodge. At the critical moment, I quickly jumped down and let the fireball hit my body. Just as the armored person was about to say thanks, I had already leaped instantly. Then I pierced through the lizard that had just fired the fireball with one spear thrust. But even as it was about to die, it kept mumbling about wanting my Akashic records. That is the status window, which recorded our process of becoming stronger and was also the source of power for every capable individual. To this, I said coldly, "You should hand over your records to me instead." After killing the flame lizard, I also gained 420,000 experience points. However, many lizards now noticed me, and they all wanted to devour me to complete their evolution. These crazy creatures surprised me somewhat. Was this also due to the overflow, causing the monsters to only focus on obtaining records and evolution? At this time, the person in armor hurriedly came over to thank me. Hearing it was a woman's voice, I struck what I thought was a cool pose, telling her to be careful of her back when fighting in the future. What pleased me most was that she indeed praised me for being handsome, although Lisa said that was because she couldn't see my face. Time passed bit by bit, and our battle with the lizards continued. Behind me now were all monster corpses. My level had also reached 44, but these lizards kept appearing, making me somewhat tired. Lisa said we needed to kill the leader that was directing the environmental changes first. If we didn't kill that boss, monsters would keep appearing. But since the beginning, I had been surrounded by many lizards attacking together, so I couldn't break away temporarily. These flame lizards were like mad demons, each one looking at me as if they had discovered treasure. Not only were they numerous, but their constant mumbling also annoyed me. To break through as quickly as possible, my killing became even more fierce. I solved each monster with one spear thrust, and watching me like a war god. A man nearby couldn't help but sigh, because it was quite difficult for several of them to deal with one monster. At the same time, after killing a group of lizards, I quickly leaped into the air. Next, I needed to carefully find who was the leader of the lizards. Soon I discovered the black leader being protected by many lizards. Without any hesitation, I charged down with my spear. The powerful force killed all the leader's guards, and I also leveled up to 45, but this leveling speed still made Lisa feel it was too slow. Just then, a huge stone pillar suddenly smashed toward me. Fortunately, the person nearby quickly reminded me and also told me that the stone pillar would explode. What surprised me was that this man spoke the same language as me. Hearing him mention explosion, I appeared nonchalant. I turned around and grabbed the flame lizard's neck and threw the monster out hard. Just as the man said, the stone pillar indeed exploded when touched. This violent method made the man's companion find it very interesting. Then many building fragments attacked me. These attacks all came from the leader just now. Seeing the fragments being dodged by me, the lizard leader stomped hard with its foot. The next moment, earth spikes rapidly spread over. It wanted to make me lose balance, but this was obviously somewhat unrealistic, because even standing on the uneven earth spikes, I could still complete my attack. However, these earth spikes also produced explosions. Seeing this scene, many capable individuals thought I had messed up. Hearing their voices, I immediately refuted them, because I had already anticipated this. Now I had played enough, and it was time to end everything. Next, it was time for my new weapon to make its appearance. The slingshot gun, enhanced by metal hearts, had become a unique grade berserker impact cone. It had 4 settings, with the highest capable of adding 4,500 attack points. After being improved, many of its drawbacks had been optimized. When the impact cone touched the leader, I instantly changed the power to level 4. This strike was extremely powerful. The lizard leader's hard skin armor couldn't withstand this terrifying penetrating power. Moreover, this attack also caused a critical hit, and the lizard leader was immediately beaten until blood seeped all over its body. Feeling the crisis from the critical hit, the other flame lizards wanted to come to rescue, but they were blocked by other capable individuals, although they only held on for a few seconds. When the monsters wanted to continue attacking, what greeted them was a broad, heavy sword. This was a black long sword forged with pure metal hearts and many high-grade materials through eternal flame tempering. Just as I was happy about the black long sword's domineering presence, the lizard leader behind me spoke. It still said the same thing about wanting my records, wanting to devour powerful humans. Then it made a piercing sound, and I had just turned around to kill it. But it activated its active skill, and instantly many stones rose from the ground, finally forming a towering stone mountain. Everyone present was stunned, because the lizard leader planned to detonate the entire battlefield. Countless stones frantically cracked and fell down, but the leader was obviously too happy too early, still fantasizing about replacing humans and reaching the pinnacle of the world. Unfortunately, before it could finish speaking, my great sword had already fallen. Regarding the leader's wishful thinking, I only said coldly, "Stop dreaming." After killing the boss, the surrounding environment began to gradually collapse, but the lizard leader didn't give much experience. Lisa said mutated monsters were just stronger at the same level. Experience wouldn't increase. After all, the lizard leader was only 2nd level. Although I was depressed hearing this, at least this incident could be resolved. When I came down, I was surprised by the scene before me, because many capable individuals surrounded me. 2 of them were especially enthusiastic, with the girl saying she could help heal me if I was injured. At this time, I recalled them, and mistakenly thought the 2 were a couple. Thinking of this, my expression changed, and Lisa said she sensed jealousy from me. After I responded that I wasn't injured, I told them to quickly deal with the remaining monsters and not let any escape. Looking at my departing figure, the girl was somewhat curious whether I was a 3rd profession change professional. Time slowly passed, and now the battle to kill flame lizards was nearing its end. But while killing, I suddenly remembered movies I had seen before. What if after I worked so hard to kill lizards, one would still quietly escape alive? Then it would wait for me to leave a city before returning to cause disaster again. But this earned Lisa's eye roll as she wondered what kind of movie I had watched. She then told me that such movie scenarios were impossible for me to encounter. Then she continued to guide me to the lizards' locations. After killing the last few lizards, I had almost solved them all. Just as I was putting materials into my backpack, Lisa said that although it was a spatial backpack, carrying this much wasn't good. Initially, I didn't take it seriously, because my strength was great, but soon my body stumbled. Then I was pressed into the ground by the huge weight. The backpack filled with all the monster corpses was really too heavy, so I told Lisa to add some weight adjusting functions to my backpack. After throwing the backpack on the ground first, I confirmed this proxy mission. Then Lisa began chanting incantations, and the target of the spell was my backpack. After a while, Lisa also called 2 other angels. She wanted her companions to help operate divine arts. Looking at the backpack pressed into the ground, the 2 angels instantly understood Lisa's meaning. Then the 3 of them began casting divine power on the backpack. Soon my backpack flew up like a feather. Lisa told me I could now freely set the backpack's weight. Even if I put dozens of tons of things in it, I could set it to weigh just a few grams. At this time, the green-haired angel nearby suddenly smiled. She said she had seen my active fighting performance today, and the child she was looking after also participated in this battle. Upon hearing this, I was instantly surprised. It turned out there were other humans besides me receiving angelic help. Lisa told me this was indeed the case, and this was also to protect rare, outstanding, capable individuals. The child looked after by the green-haired angel Perita was called Ru Yuna, a priest blessed by the goddess of beauty. She hoped that if I met her in the future, I could help her more. But Lisa said not to reveal my abilities to her. Perita was somewhat surprised, because this was the first time she had seen Lisa care about a lower existence. Could it be because of affection? Her companion's words immediately made Lisa embarrassed and angry. Then Lisa urged them to leave here quickly. Before leaving, Perita didn't forget to ask me to take care of Ryuna. After they left, Lisa asked if I wanted to get to know her. But as someone with social anxiety, I was unlikely to actively approach others. Next, Lisa would give me the skill she had promised before. It was a skill that didn't require divine power to use, called monster strength. This felt like a monster skill to me, and Lisa said it was because I'd almost learned all human skills. After dealing with the lizards, I boarded the plane to depart. I didn't expect those 2 were also on this plane. She couldn't see my figure and said, Perita clearly said that person would also take this flight. And this was naturally me using invisibility to secretly hide behind and eavesdrop. For some reason, I had an ominous premonition when I encountered them. After arriving at End City, I quickly found the dungeon where the trolls were located and prepared to enter. But the dungeon before me was obviously somewhat wrong. Before coming, Lisa had heard it was just an ordinary troll dungeon. But after her investigation, Lisa quickly understood what had happened. It turned out this was a very rare merger of 2 dungeons, which was why the entrance had become so large. She reminded me to be very careful, because this dungeon might have other monsters besides trolls. Hearing what Lisa said, I was still somewhat puzzled, so she simply stated that there were 2 bosses in the dungeon ahead that needed to be dealt with. After entering, this dungeon was a rare highland area, and soon I saw a troll, although it wasn't what I had imagined. But soon the troll before me yawned. The next second, it directly fell asleep. This shocked me. The troll took only 3 seconds from falling down to sleeping. Lisa said most trolls possessed resting skills, so they became the materials needed for rest skill evolution. I simply love this type of foolish monster. After slowly approaching, I decisively ended the troll's life. After collecting the needed evolution materials, I couldn't help but sigh how easy it was, and Lisa said that was because I was too strong. Now I still needed 500 more trolls to complete the evolution, so I happily embarked on the hunting journey. But just then, there were other people at the dungeon entrance. The newcomers were Ryuna and King Hajin, and Angel Perita also came with them. From King Hajin's words, I learned they seemed to be looking for scorpion poison, while Ryuna appeared very excited. Perita reminded the two to be careful in this dungeon. But after they entered, the dungeon entrance quietly turned red. Time flashed to several days later at night. At this moment, I was roasting troll meat in the camp. Because I had previously acquired poison resistance skills, I could now use monster meat for sustenance. Lisa was helpless about my approach, because monster meat itself was poison. But I really liked this taste. Unfortunately, Lisa refused to eat troll barbecue. After eating a skewer of roasted meat, my poison resistance skill also leveled up. Lisa said this also reflected that what I was eating now was highly toxic, but I continued eating meat with great appetite, not caring at all. After a while, I was finally full. The food was delicious because I had acquired cooking skills, and using monsters for cooking could make cooking skills improve faster. While resting, I asked Lisa, today is already the 5th day, but apart from trolls, I haven't seen other monsters. And even when I made fire and cooked here, no monsters appeared. Lisa had a guess, because after I changed profession to become a blur spearman, invisibility skill was also enhanced. Probably the firelight and smell were also hidden so monsters couldn't find me. In the following time, I continued searching for and killing trolls in the dungeon as usual. I also encountered some powerful trolls during this period, but now I was getting somewhat tired of their meat. However, these words were spoken by Lisa after reading my inner thoughts. Although I was tired of it, I still had to continuously obtain materials to upgrade skills. After killing dozens more, the status window suddenly sent a notification. Without a second profession, I couldn't level up to 50. It turned out these days of killing monsters had brought my level to 49. Then the Akashic Record selected 4 second professions for me based on my combat history. Next came teacher Lisa's little classroom. Blur Spearman Expert was the next stage of my current profession, which could greatly enhance skills and attributes in all aspects. But I didn't want to continue choosing this profession, because if I enhanced it further, probably even Mom wouldn't be able to find me. Duel Expert was a melee profession that would throw weapons in battle, and would even use the body as a weapon. Berserker was even more unacceptable to me. That was a profession that would fight to the death, and as long as the opponent hadn't died, would never leave the battlefield. In Lisa's view, these 3 professions were all very powerful and difficult to obtain, and they had a common point. They were not greatly influenced by divine power. Unfortunately, I didn't like any of them, so I asked what the remaining novice death god was. This was also the only one Lisa wasn't clear about among this batch of professions, probably another new unique profession. I only hoped it wouldn't suddenly change professions like last time, but since I didn't like the other professions, I decided to choose novice death god. Lisa had already anticipated I would do this, because I liked unknown things more than anyone. I pressed confirm, and this time there was no sudden profession change. But it required me to prove my qualification to become a death god, and the conditions were also quite outrageous. I needed to use surprise attacks to kill 100 second level monsters with 1 strike, and use surprise attacks to kill 1 third level monster with 1 strike. This difficulty was so high that I couldn't help but shout. Now I doubted whether I could successfully complete the second profession change. After thinking it over, I felt it seemed not completely impossible in this dungeon. Lisa wondered what special method I had. Then I told Lisa that I needed to postpone the evolution of rest skills. I planned to use magic stones and divine power techniques to enhance my weapons again. After a while, I was still thinking about whether current weapons could kill with 1 strike. But at this time, there was a noise from behind. Looking back, I actually discovered a huge desert scorpion, but they shouldn't appear in highlands, and the scorpion's claws were holding Ryuna. Looking at her being captured by surprise, Perita was very helpless. She had clearly reminded them to be careful. King Hajin was chasing the desert giant scorpion from behind. Not understanding the situation, I was very curious why they were caught by an opponent that didn't look very strong. Lisa said they were probably ambushed. Originally, I wanted to avoid getting involved with these 2 people, but now that I had encountered them, I couldn't ignore them. Just as I was about to take action, Lisa discovered this was the skewer I used for barbecuing. As I threw out the metal heart iron skewer, she realized I was actually using such precious metal to make barbecue skewers. And this strike also opened the scorpion's giant claw. Then I quickly rushed forward and caught Ryuna, but the next second, I threw her out without hesitation. King Hajin, who hadn't reacted, was immediately knocked down, while I took out another iron skewer from my backpack. Then I quickly charged toward the giant scorpion. When I got close, I threw the iron skewer with full force. The desert giant scorpion was directly pierced by the sudden powerful force without any resistance. The reason I could kill it instantly was because I achieved a critical hit. My critical hit skill had reached level 9. Hearing the window prompt, I realized the scorpion's level was so high. Lisa told me this was because its main attack method was poison, so other aspects were relatively weak. Having gotten tired of troll meat, I looked at the scorpion's corpse and couldn't help but think about barbecuing giant scorpion again. On the other side, Ryuna was fine, but King Hajin had been knocked unconscious. When Ryuna turned around, she also discovered who had saved her. But when Ryuna called me the dark night of a city, I was somewhat slow to react to this new title. To this, Ryuna showed me posts about me online. Now King Hajin had also awakened, and they were chatting about rumors concerning me. Lisa instantly became furious, which made me curious if she had encountered something online. After listening to them for a while, I didn't pay attention and turned around to process the scorpion. Having witnessed the entire process, they couldn't help but be impressed by my butchering skills. By evening, there was sizzling, oily roasted meat in the pot at the camp. Ryuna and King Hajin beside me hadn't eaten for a day, and looking at the delicious food, both their eyes were shining. Helplessly, I said I could also prepare their portions, but this meat was poisonous. Upon hearing this, Ryuna quickly raised her hand, saying she could solve the poison problem. Ryuna, blessed by the goddess of beauty, merely extended her hand to cast divine power. Soon the toxins in the monster meat dissipated like steam, and the meat after her purification became even more delicious. This also made me feel very unfair. She was already so beautiful, yet possessed such excellent abilities. Lisa also expressed that she was indeed blessed by the goddess of beauty, and Ryuna's sacred power surprised even her. This was the entire process of me eating with them. After eating their fill, both Ryuna and King Hajin thanked me greatly, seeing me silently cleaning up the iron skewers alone. Ryuna actively invited me to team up together, but as soon as she spoke, I instantly refused. This left Ryuna somewhat unable to react. She was clearly very beautiful, so why was she directly refused? To this, King Hajin said she deserved it. Their conversation surprised me somewhat. They didn't seem to be a couple. When preparing to leave, King Hajin came forward and handed me a business card. He was very grateful that I could save Ryuna and asked me to call him after going out, as he would give me payment. When I looked at this business card, I discovered it was the same as the one Kang Mirei had given me. Could they be from the same organization? Ryuna also handed over her business card, and she was about to explain why she came here, but was quickly stopped by King Hajin. Now I was also certain that these two and Kang Mirei should be from the same organization. Before they had gone far, I said with certainty that I would definitely encounter them again in this dungeon. Lisa didn't understand why I could be so certain. Then I said darkly, because I'm going to follow these two, because otherwise those scorpions won't come attack me. On the road, Ryuna complained to King Hajin, if we had continued talking just now, we might have gotten his help. If we had just told him we only wanted scorpion poison and didn't need anything else, he would probably have agreed. King Hajin helplessly said, what if he wanted the scorpion poison? Their reason for taking scorpion poison was subject to information restrictions, so King Hajin thought they should be careful with their words. But they didn't know I had already been following behind, listening clearly. Having followed them all the way, I also understood their trip was to catch scorpions. But Lisa had clearly said this was a troll dungeon before. To this, Lisa was embarrassed because she didn't know either, always thinking there were only trolls here. All this inconsistency made me feel there must be more to unfold, and hearing this, Lisa told me to shut up quickly. As for the giant scorpion that appeared behind, I killed it while talking. What puzzled me was that, although they couldn't discover me due to my invisibility effect, Ryuna had a guardian angel. Why was she ambushed just now? Lisa also explained, it turned out that angels' power was restricted on Earth, and guardian angels couldn't interfere too much with human life and death. Hearing this, I teased Lisa about whether she was also useless, which made her angry immediately, because she had helped me a lot. After searching for a long time, the two still hadn't found their target. They were looking for the king among desert scorpions, whose name was Giant Death Hunter. To this, I calmly pointed ahead and asked Lisa, that guy is the Death Hunter, right? It sounds very powerful from the name. Lisa also reacted. At this moment, behind King Hajin and them, a tremendously huge scorpion suddenly appeared. Just as King Hajin was frightened, Ryuna sighed that this scorpion was really big. At this time, King Hajin took out equipment and asked Ryuna to give him energy. Hearing this, Ryuna instantly activated blessing magic. After King Hajin gained full attribute enhancement, he immediately charged toward the huge Death Hunter. The combination of Holy Knight and Healer seemed like they shouldn't need our intervention. Lisa originally thought so too, but the situation seemed to have changed, and she thought I should go help, because behind Ryuna came an even more powerful troll. Hearing the monsters breathing behind her, Ryuna looked back. With this look, she was immediately startled by the troll. Knowing they couldn't resist two monsters, Ryuna quickly reminded King Hajin to escape. When the troll chased them, it was also the best time for me to surprise attack. The impact cone I had just improved had greatly enhanced killing power again. This strike was without any accident. The troll was immediately pierced through the heart. The monster's fall caused tremendous vibrations. King Hajin had already been frightened by this powerful might. When I landed on the troll, I confirmed the drawback of the improved impact cone, because after using it just once, the impact cone broke. Lisa said this was also because I had completely ignored durability. The current impact cone had been modified by me to have only one level 5 damage setting, with the drawback of having only one durability point. But without doing this, it would be impossible to kill a 3rd level monster with one strike, and the second profession mission would only be possible this way. After resolving the danger from the troll, I said goodbye to Ryuna and them, not intending to help kill the scorpion at all. Hearing this, King Hajin turned around and made eye contact with the Death Hunter. Only now did he realize he was still in battle with the scorpion. Seeing King Hajin in danger, Ryuna no longer hesitated and called out to me who was preparing to leave. She said that if I could help kill the scorpion together, then everything except the scorpion poison would all belong to me. As soon as she said this, I immediately turned around and happily agreed. I had waited too long for this sentence. Hearing this, King Hajin wanted to refuse, but was refuted by Ryuna. After all, they should indeed accept my help now. However, in just this moment of turning around, King Hajin, who didn't react, was instantly wrapped up by the scorpion's tail. Looking at this situation, I understood he couldn't refuse anymore either, so I jumped next to King Hajin. Then I swung my spear, and the Death Hunter's huge scorpion tail was cut off by me. My attack wasn't over yet. After causing damage with a surprise attack, I had to follow up with pursuit. The enhanced spear shattered the scorpion's hard shell with this strike. King Hajin was still amazed by my strength. Luo Yona beside him quickly reminded him to hurry up and attack together with me. King Hajin, who came to his senses, hastily used his divine power, then launched his pursuit skill. Through Lisa's explanation, I learned this was a skill that was affected by the previous attack and increased the damage of the next attack. But in my opinion, King Hajin's skill using divine power didn't seem as strong as I had imagined. After his offensive ended, it was followed by my next round of attacks. I was equally skilled at delivering finishing blows. After suffering my fatal attack, the giant hunter died completely. When the battle ended, I quickly began butchering. Soon I had picked out all the poisonous parts, and I gave them the poison needles and poison threads. Lisa suspected whether Parita had calculated everything from the beginning just to get my help. I had no thoughts on this matter and went to handle the giant scorpion's corpse. Unexpectedly, the giant scorpion dropped a third-level magic stone. This greatly surprised Parita, who hadn't expected Earth to produce high-level magic stone so quickly. However, just as Parita's exclamation ended, she was once again restrained by Lisa. Having obtained this third-level magic stone, I would soon be able to complete my mission. After finishing collecting the materials, King Hajin and Luo Yona extended an invitation to me, wanting me to join their team. But once again, I decisively refused. Yet they continued trying to persuade me to join. Even the angel Parita thought the same way. A group of powerful ability users teaming up would greatly improve hunting combat effectiveness. However, even so, I still refused to join their team. After all, I had always had a weak presence since childhood, and had grown accustomed to being alone. Seeing this, Lisa politely declined on my behalf, then urged Parita and Luo Yona to leave. Before leaving, King Hajin and the others told me to make sure to contact them once I returned to my country. My inner thought was that it would be better if we never met again. Now only Lisa and I remained, and it was time for me to do what I needed to do. I had already collected all the evolution materials needed for the rest skill. I was looking forward to seeing what changes the rest skill would have after evolution.